looking to see what they're gonna say, see how many people show up.
I feel like a dude would talk to me if I was on the call with him. I do. I feel like he would just be like, dang, look at all that. And look at all that. Ooh, he's sitting down now.
You're good with the teleprompter?
Well,
Yeah.
good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We'll give a few minutes for some more to join us. So we'll probably start a few minutes after 5:30.
4:30 Central.
I'm sorry, 4:30 Central. Well, we have a good number of those of you who have joined us this late afternoon, so we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll let others join us as they may. My name is Michelle Clark Jenkins, and I head the consulting division of Griffin and Strong. We're a law and public policy consulting firm based in Atlanta, Georgia. With me tonight is Trinity Williams, who is our deputy project manager. Trinity, you want to introduce any of the other members of our team that are on?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. We have our sub-consultants on, Rachel Morebeard. She is our sub-consultant with strategy and leadership. She will be doing anecdotal interviews. I'm not sure if our other two I see Janice Banks. She is also one of our sub-consultants doing anecdotal interviews with Small Planet Works. And our third sub-consultant is, I don't think she's on, but yeah, she's with Crowns and Marketers.
All right, great, thank you. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We know there are lots of other things you can be doing and that you found this important enough to join us as we kick off the disparity study for Metro Nashville. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Michelle Lane, who is the Chief Procurement Officer for Metro Nashville.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for that introduction. I'll be brief this evening. It is my privilege to introduce to you all a special guest who's here to kick off our meeting today. Mayor John Cooper is the 9th mayor of Metro Nashville and Davidson County government. He was born in Nashville and previously served as a Metro Council member at large. Mayor Cooper understands the impact that government contracts have on equity, and that's why he's been a strong supporter of the Equal Business Opportunity Program here in Nashville, making sure that Black, Brown, and women-owned businesses are included in government contracts. Mayor Cooper, we thank you for your commitment to the EBO program here in Nashville, and we thank you for being here this afternoon. And without further comment from me, I'm going to turn things over to Mayor Cooper for some opening remarks. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for that introduction, and thank everybody here for being on the call. And I want to just recognize, I think some folks, important folks on the call, Michelle, of course, Kelly Flannery, our Director of Finance, Christopher Wood, the Director of Business Assistance, and I hope council members Sharon Hurd and Tanaka Vercher. Now, thanks to council members Hurd and Vercher, in 2019, the council approved the Equal Business Opportunity Program. And it was the right thing to do as we strive to create a better, more equitable Nashville. Economic development has to work for all of us. And for too long, we focused outward, trying to attract folks outside of Nashville to come here and build their business. Now it's time that we focus inward and make this incredible moment of opportunity work for residents who are already living here. And that's every resident in every neighborhood. And all Nashvillians deserve an equal shot at turning their business dreams into reality. And I look forward to seeing more entrepreneurs of color and female entrepreneurs emerge. But I mean, you helped me identify this. I think we're headed in the right direction. We designed the Nashville Small Business Recovery Fund that recently launched with $18 million of ARP funds to help small businesses in our Nashville thrive and employ Nashvillians with good paying jobs. And then earlier this summer, and I hope it's approved tomorrow, a $10 million investment to transform Burris Hall on Fisk University's campus into an innovation incubator. Now that's modeled on similar programs at top universities around the country, and the new Burris Hall is going to host tech boot camps, mentoring programs, classes, workshops, and events to assist emerging entrepreneurs and spur development right in the middle of the Jefferson Street corridor. Now, over the last 2 fiscal years, the city of Nashville has proposed spending more with Black, Brown, and women-owned businesses than at any time in our history. And this is thanks to the Equal Business Opportunity Program. Now, to keep that program going, we need a thorough and accurate disparity study that requires community involvement. Disparity studies are how we hold ourselves accountable and continue to drive the change we need. Now, during my time as mayor, spending with Black and Brown-owned businesses is up 113 million, and proposed spending with women-owned businesses is up 78 million. Now, that's a great start, but we're working from a generations-long deficit, and there's a lot left to do. This study is an important step, but it will continue to take all of us, making equity a consistent and essential priority as our city grows. I think we're on the right path, and I look forward to working with all of you, with each one of you, to make the right decisions and investments that will create a Nashville that really works for everyone. So thank you all for being here, and off to a great start. And thank you, Michelle, for your introduction.
Thank you so much again, Mayor Cooper, for being here, and thank you for your continued support. And what I'd like to do now is turn things back over to Michelle Clark-Jenkins to kick off the agenda for tonight.
Okay. So what we'll be doing tonight is presenting the disparity study, what it's going to look like over the next approximately year that we'll be conducting it. So I'll go through a PowerPoint that'll explain what it is. At the end, you'll have ample opportunity to ask all the questions and make all the comments that you would like. This meeting is being recorded, and some of what you may ask or comment on, we may actually use in the study itself. For those who are not here tonight, this recording of this meeting will be posted on the study website within the next day or so. Okay, a couple of housekeeping things. Please use the chat room to put your information. We would love to have your name as well as your company name. Of course, you did that when you registered, but this is a really good opportunity to kind of share with other businesses who are on the line. So feel free to do that, and we'll move forward. Okay, so a little bit about our firm. Griffin & Strong, as I mentioned, is a law and public policy consulting firm based in Atlanta, Georgia. We have been around for more than 30 years. In our consulting division, this is all we do, is disparity research. We have 5 attorneys, two PhD economists, a PhD in social psychology, a PhD in public policy, and a PhD in anthropology. And you get all of them rolling up their sleeves and working on this study. We also do contract compliance programs. We do development training. We do supplier diversity consulting. And our mission from the beginning has always been to advance the economic development of the communities we serve by providing the highest quality of professional services to our clients, both in the public and the private sectors. Our CEO, Rodney Strong, who unfortunately wanted to be with us here tonight, but was not able to arrange his schedule, is our CEO and also the project executive on this project. He's very familiar with Metro Nashville. We have done the previous study there. He was originally the director of the City of Atlanta's Department of Contract Compliance, and he was the project manager on the first post-Croson, and I'll tell you what Croson is in a minute, disparity study, and the principal architect of the City of Atlanta's EBO program that became the model for the nation. Our principal researcher, Dr. Vince Egan, is one of the foremost experts in conducting over 150 studies, and he has successfully defended 6 studies as an expert witness. And again, I'll explain why that's important in a minute. Dr. Egan is also probably one of the last remaining expert witnesses who have actually defended studies. So let's start with kind of the basics. What is the disparity study? It's an objective research tool that determines whether there are disparities in a government agency's procurement activities of certain groups and whether such disparities are statistically significant and likely caused by the race and gender status of the majority owners. I know that's a mouthful, but basically we want to see that if certain groups, and we do break it down by ethnicity and gender, if certain groups represent 10% of the available firms to do certain kinds of business for Metro Nashville, are they getting 10% of the business? These studies measure disparities between availability and utilization. Again, I'll explain a little bit more of that in a minute, for race, ethnicity, and gender groups. Sometimes they're used for race and gender neutral groups like small businesses, veterans, other groups, but they're really created to see if we can in essence see some level of discrimination, which we define as the current effects of past discrimination. So it's a culmination of history that has led us to a point where there are disparities between utilization and availability. So why do we do disparity studies? And it's because of this Supreme Court case in 1989, City of Richmond, Virginia versus J.A. Croson. That was the first time that the Supreme Court or any court equated malevolent discrimination with remedial preference programs. What in essence the court said is that the 14th Amendment requires that we treat all citizens equally. Therefore, if you are discriminating against someone for negative reasons, and if you have a preference program that gives one group preferences over another, under the 14th Amendment, they're treated similarly. So in order to overcome that, the court says we look at anything that is race and gender based, we look at it kind of with a side eye. So they test it with a really high level of scrutiny called strict scrutiny. And so in order to overcome that, you have to have what the courts call a factual basis in evidence, which is what a disparity study is. And then anything you do as a result of that disparity study has to be narrowly tailored to the outcome of the study, so the findings of the study. So if we don't have a finding, we can't make a recommendation. If we don't have a finding, we can't say, well, one group we want to put this program in place unless we have a finding that supports that. And the real reasons for narrow tailoring is so that you don't have over-inclusion or under-inclusion. I will tell you, as I go through this methodology of how you conduct a disparity study, that to some of you, it may appear to be somewhat counterintuitive. It may be, but how we conduct a study is dictated by case law. So over the last 30 years, what happened is the Croson case said what we had to do, but didn't tell us how to do it. So what has happened over the last 30 years, as programs have been put in place, and some of them have been challenged in court, the courts have said, we approve this way of doing things and we don't approve this way of doing things. And sometimes they've been silent on things we've done, which we're saying, okay, if they're silent, it must be good. So disparity study methodologies have been really developed based on case law. So this is our study process. This is kind of the whole enchilada, which is why it takes at least a year to conduct these studies. I'm going to walk through each one of these very briefly. And again, at the end, you're welcome to ask me as many questions as you like about how we conduct these studies. So we do an overview of a legal analysis, of course, because disparity studies are a creation of the court. We look at policy, we collect and clean data. Huge amount of that time, really from start to finish. We've started collecting and cleaning data, and we'll be doing that most of the time through the whole process before we even get to any analysis. We have to determine what area are we studying. We then look at utilization, which is where Metro Nashville is spending its money, compared again to the ready, willing, and able firms in the marketplace. And that comparison gives us a disparity analysis. We also look at what's happening in the marketplace. And then you all are part of our anecdotal evidence and then our final reports, which include goals. So one of the first things we look at is a deep dive into the policies and procedures that Metro Nashville is using in its procurement. we're trying to see a couple of things. One is there anything on the face of the policies that might present a barrier to women and minority-owned firms? Also, does everyone, as we do interviews, which we both do, review written policy, and we interview those staff members who are most involved with procurement. We ask we want to find out if they understand the policies as they're written, and do the policies match the practices? And then ultimately, what policies could be modified to promote MWBE inclusion? Data, data. Everything we do, or the heart of a disparity study, is this data. We determine data sources, we collect all the available electronic data, we enter data into spreadsheets, we clean data, we fill gate adapts. So if there's something that Metro Nashville doesn't have, that's why we have economists who help us do that. And we're very transparent in how we do things. And at the end, Metro Nashville will have hopefully working databases that will help them with their programs moving forward. So again, what are we studying? What are the parameters of our study? So we're looking at the last 5 years. And then we're also looking at firms who are within what we call a relevant market. And the relevant market is determined by where Metro Nashville over the past 5 years has already spent its dollars. So where are those firms located? Are they just within the city of Nashville? Are they within the Davidson County? Are they within the MSA? How far out are they already spending their dollars? Because we want to make sure that if that's where the firms are, if the firms, let's say, are in the MSA, we want to make sure that those firms that are in that MSA are part of whatever the outcomes are of this study, because that's where the dollars are already going. So what we look at is we kind of borrow from antitrust law in determining a marketplace, which is where is Metro Nashville spending at least 75% of its dollars. And we do break it down by procurement category. So we look at construction, we look at construction-related professional services like architecture and engineering. Then we look at the category of professional services, doctors, lawyers, accountants, consultants, and then other services, which are marketing, printing, lawn service. And then we also look at goods, which are any commodities. We also try to break down by further by products and services only that Metro Nashville is purchasing. So if Metro Nashville doesn't buy hairdressing services, then hairdressers won't be part of our analysis. So then our first analysis is, and I'm going to look at the right-hand side of this slide, which is utilization. Pretty straightforward. Who and where is Metro Nashville spending their dollars? And we do break it down by each ethnic group. We look African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Native American, non-minority women, and then we have a catch-all, which is non-MWBE. Now, non-MWBE could be non-minority male-owned firms, it could be publicly held corporations, or it could be uncertified minority and women-owned firms, because we only count certified firms in our availability. So now that's called a catch-all of non-MWBEs. So we're measuring the dollars in each of those 5 industry categories that I mentioned, and what dollars went to which groups. And we do look at it both as primes and subcontractors. And one of the things we really look at is what we call total utilization. So of all the dollars spent by Metro Nashville, what percentage of those actually went into the hands of women and minority-owned firms? We also do a threshold analysis, and a threshold analysis looks at the level of contracting that Metro Nashville is doing. Are they doing a whole bunch of big contracts? If they are, that might indicate that maybe for minority and women-owned firms who sometimes are small firms, that maybe we might recommend something like looking at unbundling contracts if there are a whole lot of big contracts. If there are a whole lot of small contracts, that's actually good news for small businesses, because we hear so often when we do these studies, well, you made this company who's a small company, you said they're available as a firm, but they can't do a $5 million contract. Well, that may be true, but is Metro Nashville only doing $5 million contracts? Or are they doing $200,000 contracts? So it really helps us to understand the issue of capacity in terms of whether small businesses have opportunities to operate as primes. Because at the end of the day, besides doing the disparity study, one of the things we want to also see is how do we build capacity of firms who are out in your marketplace. So probably the most contentious part of our disparity studies are always the availability analysis. Who are the ready, willing, and able firms who are out there who can perform services? So we do a methodology called the list approach. There are a number of methodologies you could use, but the list approach is the one that we like because it takes those firms that have been bidders, have registered to be vendors, have been awarded contracts, have been paid, are certified as MBEs and WBEs, and also third-party government lists. So we'll include state lists, we'll include other, surrounding areas, we'll include the airport list, we'll include other lists of government agencies in order to create this pool of firms who are ready, willing, and able to perform services. And we do factor in things like contract size, capacity, and experience to determine true availability. So then disparity analysis is that comparison. If African-American owned engineering firms are 10% of all engineering firms in that relevant marketplace, are they getting 10% of the dollars? So once we determine that if there is a disparity, if there is one, then we test it to see if it's statistically significant, which just is looking at how deep is the disparity. And then we take one more analysis, which is called a regression analysis, where we say, could this disparity be explained by something other than race or gender? And there are a number of things we look at. For example, if we're comparing A firm to B firm, has B firm been in business longer? Have they have more employees? Are they a bigger firm? Does the owner have more experience? So we kind of equalize all those other explanations for why there would be a disparity. And if a disparity still exists, then the courts allow us to make what they call an inference of discrimination. And again, this is a culmination of history, which says it's not a finger pointing at the current administration or even past administrations. What it's saying is that a combination of what has happened in the public sector, in other words, in your marketplace, as well as the spend process of Metro Nashville over time has resulted in a disparity. And so if there's a disparity that the courts allow us to make a legal inference of, then we can begin to make remediation. So one more analysis that we do is we do a private sector analysis, kind of a misnomer. It really is a marketplace disparities analysis. It looks at, outside of the spend that Metro Nashville government's doing, what's going on in the private sector. Because if you look at availability, if there's discrimination in the private sector, that's the feeding place or the pool of where businesses are coming in and are ready, willing, and able to do business with Metro Nashville government. So if there's discrimination in the marketplace, you could have at one time had 0 construction firms owned by Hispanic American owned firms and 0 were used. Therefore, we have parity. There are 0, we use 0, so no discrimination. So we've got to look further and say, has there been something in the marketplace that has depressed self-employment? Are there disparities in the construction market? And we also look at credit market disparities to see if there are issues there that may in fact depress availability. And the courts have said that even if Metro Nashville government spend is on target, that if there's a finding of these disparities in the private marketplace, that Metro Nashville government can be a change agent for remediation. So now this is the part where you all get involved, which is our anecdotal evidence. Trinity, you want to talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, so community engagement and anecdotal evidence plays a very important part in the qualitative analysis of the study. For example, with anecdotal interviews, we're able to take about a random sample of about 50 people. We conduct independent interviews, and we basically center our questions around just trying to get everybody's experiences, whether they're positive or negative, working with Metro Nashville. With public hearings, we'll have those in the spring of this upcoming 2023. And this is an opportunity for us to listen from all business owners who attend the hearings. In focus groups, we're able to center our questions around just to see if these experiences that are common, if there's a trend or if there is any theme with these experiences that we've already heard. And with informational meetings like today, we're able to inform the public of what a disparity study is, who we are, what the process is, and answer any questions around that. And also I put in the chat our email and social media. So please feel free to email us any questions or comments you have, and visit the website for any additional information.
Okay. Thank you, Trinity. So at the end of the study, we will present our findings and we'll make recommendations. So I cannot overestimate or overemphasize how important your participation is to the recommendations of our study. The findings are what they are, but assume that we find some disparities. The question is, how do we fix them? How do we remediate them? And a lot of that comes from you all because we listen to your experiences. And again, like Trinity said, we're looking to see if there are trends. We're looking to see if we can quantify some of them. And even the ones that are small, think about this. If you are a business, and this has been asked of us many times, only 10% of the people or 20% of the survey respondents said that something was an issue for them. Well, if you were a business and 1 out of every 5 people who walked into your business said, I have an issue with this, wouldn't you want to know about that? Doesn't mean that you necessarily have to do major changes based on that, but you want to make sure, we want to make sure that all the things that you report to us, that we are translating that to Metro Nashville. But your voice has to be heard in all of this. The other way that we make recommendations is our expertise in doing disparity studies all around the country, which we've been doing for 30 years. And we're seeing innovation, we're seeing new ways that people are doing things to increase participation. And also we look at the policy review that we did at the very beginning, where we're doing a deep dive to look at what Metro Nashville is already doing. We can, because we've done such a deep dive, we can make a lot of recommendations about how those policies can be more inclusive. So this is really what our schedule looks like. This summer, we're doing this informational meeting. The website is launched. We do have a dedicated website We're beginning to undertake the policy reviews and the data collection. We'll do a survey in the winter. We'll still be preparing those databases, working on that database and collecting anecdotal evidence. Private sector will be in the spring, and then about the end of July, sometime in July, we will finish up the study and be doing presentations. So you all can get involved, and we really want you involved. This is your opportunity to have your voice heard. If you don't show up to these meetings, which we are amazed at how many of you have come out tonight, and we just want to make sure that you stay involved with us. This was important enough for you to come to hear this information. Stay with us over this year. We will be responsive to you. If you want to email us directly, if you get asked to do an anecdotal interview, if you get a survey of business owners, the survey is really important because that's a really easy way to quantify what's going on. Focus groups, if you get invited to any of those, please say yes. And then probably, I won't say it's the most important, but we really, the same way you have turned out tonight, and even more so when we get to the public hearings in early 2023, please come and tell us about your experiences, again, good or bad. I think Metro Nashville needs to not know just the things that you have concerned about, but they need to hear the things that you think are working as business owners. And so we do have a dedicated, and I think Trinity put it in the chat room, a dedicated email address, nashvillestudy@gspclaw.com. We do also have a dedicated website where if you're not sure, you haven't heard about something, go to the website. It'll tell you upcoming events, tell you more about our firm, more about the methodology of the study. And again, please stay engaged with us. If you don't get invited to something and you have something you want to tell us, please email us. We will respond to you, and we want to talk to you. Okay, so questions, comments, we're open. You can use your raise hand function. You can, if you have your camera on, you can wave at me or wave your hand, or if any of you are on by telephone, you can just shout out and we'll acknowledge you. Okay, I see Ms. McClary. You're on mute. You're still on mute. See if you can get yourself unmuted.
Dolores, click the little microphone at the bottom. You got it.
Oh, we still can't hear you. Do you have your sound turned down on your computer? Turn your sound up on your computer. Still can't hear you.
I don't think she can hear us.
Can you hear us? Yeah, she can hear us, but we can't hear her. Okay, while you work that out, which I think is probably the sound on your computer is probably turned down, and you may need to, or your microphone is not turned on your Zoom. I will go to Jennifer Ransom.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you for the explanation of why the disparity study is necessary. It almost seems counterintuitive when you can simply look at spending over the course of probably the last decade to see how deep the disparity is. But I understand the steps that need to be taken, and I'm glad that you are in place to do that. I have a question about the regression analysis that you described. it sounded like you were saying that if you take comparable companies and you kind of try to equalize for years in business, number of employees, all of that, you kind of neutralize those factors to make sure that you're, I don't know, comparing apples to apples. I guess I kind of missed what you said about that, because it seems like if a company, a majority owned company, has been in business for 30 years, of course they're going to have more employees. Of course they're going to be, have more revenue, more opportunity to take on larger projects. So I really wasn't clear on, do you mind describing that again for me?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll describe it again, but I am not the economist. Our economists do the regression.
Okay.
So I can't
Okay.
get technical for you, but I can tell you what they do. That's exactly the way you gave it back to me, is the way I explained it, which is that you do want to compare apples to apples. So, for example, if you want to say, well, why is there a disparity? And let's say I have a firm that has one truck and one employee and just started business 2 years ago, and a firm that has 300 employees, does 30 million in revenue, and has been in business for 3 generations. Clearly, if you compare the two of them, there is a reason why you could understand why there's disparity between why one is getting more business than the other today. So the economists are able to run certain types of economic analysis that basically, like I said, equalize, that's the best term I can use, kind of flatten out all of those differences and begin to compare like firms to like firms. So when we have, and they use a number of different sources, we do our own survey of business owners. We also use census data, and we also use American Community Survey data and a number of other data sets that are publicly available. So using all of those data sets, you're really comparing apples to apples and equalizing those other factors to be able to say, well, after I flatten all those out, do I still have a disparity? And that's when you can make the inference of discrimination.
Okay, I guess I was concerned that that information could potentially be used to justify why they would go with the bigger company versus the smaller company. Like the smaller company can't handle this size project, or that it would be used negatively, but that's not what you're.
Yeah. And also there's another side of this too. We also, just so that you understand, another thing that we do is we also look at, again, we've heard all the arguments, the naysayers of some of these studies. So we try to do things that are convincing. So for example, we do an analysis of all dollars spent. But again, we've heard this argument that says, well, if we're talking about ready, willing, and able firms today, this firm who has a truck can't do a $5 million construction contract, even though they may have a truck and they can, be a handyman. Well, so what we do is we do an analysis of all spend, but then we take out the big contracts and say, well, let's see, is there a disparity in the smaller contracts? Is there a disparity when you just look at those ones where capacity isn't an issue? So there are lots of ways that we slice and dice these numbers so that, it's clear and convincing. And that's really what we want, is clear and convincing evidence of whether in fact there are disparities based on race and gender, and not just based on, well, I'm a bigger firm, so that's why I'm getting all the contracts.
Excellent. Thank you for that explanation. That's very helpful. Thank you.
I see Ms. Tillman has her hand up.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fabiola Tillman. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Summit Industries. Our company is based here in Texas. I guess mine is less of a question, or maybe a question and a recommendation in one. Here in the state of Texas, there is the historically underutilized business that drives state agencies to utilize ethically minority-owned companies. It's been very successful here in the state of Texas. I wanted just to put that out there for the individuals that are leading the case study as a potential reference for you to look at. Our company is one of those, a big beneficiary of such a contract here in the state of Texas. I just wanted to make that recommendation. I believe a lot of what you mentioned today, I have learned and heard from the Texas State Comptroller's Office, who leads that initiative and that contract. There's also members under that contract that are already listed, since you guys right now are in the data collection stage. So just a point of reference for you, if that is of any use to you, but I wanted to put it out there. And I will be connecting with you guys offline as well, to share with you some of the success and my experience here with the Texas State Comptroller's Office and the HUB program here in the state of Texas.
Great, thank you so much. Our chief statistician, Ram Hagigi, actually conducted, on behalf of the State Comptroller's Office, the last disparity study for the state of Texas.
Oh, okay.
And we just completed last year a study for Bexar County. And so one of the things that Texas has and North Carolina has that you don't have in Tennessee is a statewide certification program. So state of Tennessee doesn't have that. You have GoDBE, but it's not, and it's a in North Carolina, it's exclusively the certification program. That's not the case in Texas. But thank you so much, Ms. Tillman, because there are some real innovative things happening. Those statewide contracts are much more interestingly applied in Texas than I think probably any other state. I see Miss Gopher. I hope I pronounced your name right.
It's Gopher.
Okay, great.
So you were right the first time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And by the way, if you would tell us your name and your company name, that would be great.
Absolutely. My name is Sean Gopher, and I am with PMBS Global Specialties Incorporated. And the question that I have is, as part of your studies, have you ever considered also looking into whether or not the contract awards actually reflect the inflation within our economy? Because part of the reason why we have these programs, from what I understand, is you're helping us to scale, and you're providing us with a segue so that we can have scalability and have a greater impact. And you know, with someone like me, I get smaller contracts. I don't get like $5 million contracts. And for those who do, congratulations. If you need someone to do your branded merchandise, I'm the person. So, you know, with that being said, you know, I have experienced where, you know, economy has grown. And in my industry in particular, a lot of suppliers and manufacturers have actually increased their prices by 30–40%. So if then we're stuck in a contract that we wind up losing money, you know, and lowers our profit margins, because I don't think that they fully understand what's going on in the entire country. And I say this at the risk of putting a hole in my foot. I'm willing to do that. But that is very important to me because, you know, companies like mine, we are looking to scale.
Right.
And I mean, I've been blessed to have many opportunities. I've just became a seller with Walmart. I'm right now talking with Walmart Canada and Mexico and International now to sell my products on their sites, which is a blessing. But I'm still concerned because it takes so much longer to be able to scale. And you know, I would rather scale out and allow someone else to be a part of this program and have the benefits, you know, of all of the expertise and knowledge that I've been given.
Yeah. So this is not an unusual question that's come up. And I do think, again, these are the things you have to tell us in our anecdotal. Those are the things when there are issues like that that come up. And by the way, we've heard this around the country that, you know, larger firms sometimes can absorb that impact. But we've had firms in some of the studies we've done, and we've heard over and over again that they have a contract, they're bound by the prices in their contract, but meanwhile, all of their supplies prices have gone up in some cases, you know, almost putting firms out of business in order to try to satisfy a contract they have. So, so all of your issues that you have that are preventing you from moving forward, we want to hear about in your experiences. So some of, and I will tell you, some of your issues will translate not always to race and gender. Sometimes it'll translate to size. And so some of our recommendations may be race and gender neutral, because honestly, race and gender neutral remedies, you sometimes have a freer hand in, and then also they can benefit all small businesses and therefore help to benefit minority and women-owned firms in the process. So something like that is probably not necessarily race and gender based, but it is small business based. So we're not just saying to you, tell us about your experiences just based on race and gender. We're telling you about the experiences with the process that have affected your business positively or negatively. And again, I will tell you, please tell us the positive, because if there's something that's working for you, then tell us it's working for you so that we can tell them to keep it, you know, otherwise.
And trust me,
yeah,
I've
otherwise
been
it goes
completely
away.
blessed. Yes, I have been where you have that issue in the economy. I've also found that there are many champions in my corner. I didn't realize at the time that, you know, the person I started off with in Shelby County went around to the airports and went around to the other cities and was like, I'm using her. What are you going to do? So it's truly a blessing. But we still need to get to a point where we can also be able to utilize these programs to actually scale out so that we can help someone else. Right. And give that room to someone else.
Good, thank you.
And thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome, you're welcome. Jernell Cochran.
Hey, I'm the founder president of Civic Hacker LLC, provide IT services. And so one positive that I've noticed over the years is that there was an extra layer of bureaucracy that was removed at some point. So we're registered with the governor's office as a minority-owned business, and there was some change that happened at some point that allowed us to be recognized by the city without doing a formal kind of application with them directly. So that was positive. I don't know when or why that happened, but that requirement was removed. So that was pretty cool. And the issues that I've seen around these contracts is, one is around the escalation. Usually the price escalation that you build into the contract is, you know, capped at 2%. I've seen one that was like at 3%. So speaking to speaking towards the like previous person's like comments, if that could be increased in some kind of way to kind of account for this time, then that kind of allows us to kind of build in some kind of more layers of protection inside of the contract. So that'll be great. And my last kind of piece is kind of a question. I noticed that you all are going to analyze the spin of the cities relative to sectors and the businesses that are available, broken down by business types and all those things. One of the things that we have in Nashville is that technically the pricing is usually set within the contract. Like they're like so how are you going to match size of project to opportunity capabilities when the size of the project is typically the size cost is typically set by the person or the group that's submitting the contract through whatever spreadsheet they provide, pricing spreadsheet they tell us to fill out. But then the scope of the project is kind of like the real size of the project, right? Like saying a project is $5 million doesn't necessarily mean that there's a comparable comparison between price and scope, when the scope is what the smaller businesses really have to lean really hard on in order to reach the bar to be considered for the contract. It's like
So are you saying that you're not and I'm assuming you're talking about subcontractors, that as a subcontractor, you're not putting your pricing out there, that they're telling you what your pricing needs to be?
No, I'm saying that as a prime contractor,
As a prime.
or someone designed to be a prime, is that the scope of project is what is driving the pricing and the spend, and it's totally it's kind of like what is accepted by the city. Like they'll straight up tell you that the scoring of the applications is in reverse proportional to the pricing. So if you put in a lower price, chances are you would technically get a higher score. They're very transparent about it. They say that. So how given that, how does that methodology, or can we provide any your study provide any visibility on that? Kind of like it's trying to incentivize all businesses, which would include the underrepresented businesses, to price themselves in a way that makes that hopefully gets them a higher score, but literally puts them in the same situation that you're talking about, where you're locking yourself in a pricing scheme that is going to hurt you to fulfill, when that is the basis of the kind of like the initial scoring. Who has the lowest price gets the highest. We're not incentivized to put higher prices because of that. Is there any connection with your study to try to provide visibility on what can we do to improve that?
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying. And I think well, first of all, I'm assuming that you're talking about some sort of a low bid, where it's not best value, but it's a lowest bidder kind of a bid situation, where you're saying that's outside of being qualified, that's all that matters, is the low bid price, which is the competitive, what you're talking about, the competitive bids where it's just pricing. Right.
They'll tell you that, hey, we provide pricing, we provide the initial scoring based upon the lowest price being the highest, and then the scoring methodology that they use has diminishing returns relative to increases in prices.
Yeah. So yeah, we do take that into account in the study, in the sense that we are sensitive about the fact that bigger firms can have the capability of perhaps getting lower, perhaps, bigger companies can get, certain things at lower prices. They can, their overhead, there's certain things the big companies can do that small companies obviously can't do. And so one of the things that we're always going to be looking at, again, if we find a disparity in there, is what are the things we can do to incentivize the utilization of small minority and women-owned firms. And so we're very conscious of the fact that there are things that large firms can do that small firms can't, just by definition. And so how do we overcome that to give more opportunities to, again, minority and women-owned firms who tend to be small? How do you do that if at the end of the day, there are some contracts that are just whoever's the lowest price is, gets the biggest amount of points? So what do you do? And so those are the kinds of things that we'll make recommendations at the end. By the way, our findings are our findings in the study. The Metro Nashville does not have input into our findings of our study. They are what they are, and they are independent. Our recommendations are sometimes developed in conjunction with them. So at the end of the study, we'll make our recommendations, but we also will talk through our recommendations with Metro Nashville to help to work through those things that are going to work best for them. Of course, we wouldn't recommend anything that our firm does not believe that we could defend if it were ever challenged. And also, we would not put forth a recommendation that we didn't think would be effective or helpful for moving the needle if the needle needs to be moved. More questions, more comments? I didn't see that there were any questions in the chat room. Trinity, were there any questions in the chat room or comments? Other than, I see one that's a comment. Some minority and women-owned businesses in Nashville are qualified to operate as the prime contractor on a project, but our point system does not award any diversity points for the prime. Diversity points are only awarded for subcontractors. We should adjust our system to also encourage and acknowledge minority and women-owned businesses acting as the prime contractor. So again, when we get to the end of the study, we'll talk about what are some of the recommendations we can make. But I will tell you, the courts are very averse to any race or gender goals when it comes to prime contractors. So that's just the way the court has gone in terms of race and gender, but fear not, there are lots of very effective things we can do to assist prime contractors. It is one of the things you want to see at the end of these studies, even no matter the outcome. I mean, you want to see at least small businesses, which when you talk about small businesses in Metro Nashville, you're pulling over minority and women-owned businesses with that group. You want to see that group who have traditionally been subcontractors make that leap over to being primes. Because if they make that leap and they come in with certain particularly small contracts, they'll begin to grow their capacity and begin to grow and begin to be competitive and put more competition in front of Metro Nashville. So it's a win-win for the businesses. It's a win-win for Metro Nashville. I will tell you that City of Memphis did that after their last study and took their participation, almost doubled their participation over the last 8 years. 2016, 8 years, yeah, over the last 8 years. And I really feel like that was the big push, is pulling those small businesses over into being primes. So we have a lot of work to do. We are partnering with Metro Nashville government. I will tell you that, again, I'm not just saying this, but we do these studies all over the country, and you have an administration who really wants to accomplish something here. And that, by the way, is not always the case. Sometimes it's do a study and the study kind of blow the dust off of it and it sits on a shelf. That was not our experience the last time. Metro Nashville worked us to the bone, getting new program last time. I'm sure they'll do the same this time to make it even better. And again, I really encourage you all to stay with us over this year. Come to things, participate in things, tell other businesses to participate. You know, I'll tell you that survey that we do, we really want to have 300 plus respond to that survey. If we can get 500, that'd be great, but 300 plus. But when we go into jurisdictions and we see 50 or 100 firms fill out that survey, it's really disheartening or not participate, come to a public hearing, and we've got 5 people who show up to a public hearing, which I can already tell is not going to happen here. It's disheartening because the administration says, well, do people just not care about this issue? When in fact it may be, well, you know, we've become apathetic. You know, we just don't see things changing, or we think things are going well, so we don't want to say anything. Whether you think things are going well, whether you think things have, you know, whatever it is you think, please bring those experiences and those thoughts to these meetings so that we can hear the whole breadth of experiences. That's the only way that we have a successful study here. I also see what is the best way? I lost it. What is the best way to obtain a contract? I am registered with the city and have not received one contract. So I will let you talk to,
Michelle.
yes. I'll let you talk to Metro Nashville directly about that. About how to receive a contract and all of those things that are necessary. Actually, if there's someone on, you can probably tell them where to go to best find out that information.
If there's somebody who's
understand.
interested in doing business with the city, they can always go to purchasing.nashville.gov. We'll put that in the chat
hear
box, or you can
Send
go
it.
directly to the Doing Business with Metro page, which is at tinyurl.com/workwithmetro. Again, we'll put both of those links in there, and that gives the overview of what the purchasing process looks like for Metro, how you register, and then of course, in order, we don't just obviously hand out contracts, you have to bid on those contracts, and so it walks you through what that bidding process looks like and what the various ways are that you can participate. And we'll put both of those in the chat box.
Okay.
Can I add one thing to that,
sure.
Michelle? Yeah, I just would like to say, in addition to what Zach has said, if you have bid on contracts with us and you've been unsuccessful, I encourage you to reach out to us, to the buyer. We, often connect with suppliers who are unsuccessful, and we do what we call a decompress with them, where we walk through all of the offers that were received, and they can get a sense of what the winning offer did well, and they can get some pointers for how they can have a better offer in the future.
Right. Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Cliftina Carter. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
I have a question about, when you was talking about large opportunities, which major companies could bid on. Have you ever considered breaking the contract up and putting it into different scope sections for small businesses to get a collaborations of small businesses to bid on that large contract?
Yeah, so that's part of what one of the analysis we're going to do. We do something called a threshold analysis to see if contract sizing is an issue. And if we feel like contract sizing is an issue, that can be a recommendation that we can make.
Thank you.
Let's see. I think that's all I see in the.
Eric?
I asked a question about Nashville Airport. So our study does not include the airport. The study includes Metro Nashville and Davidson County government only. Will your analysis normalize along the length of RFPs, length of time RFP? So again, our analysis and the things that we bring up that may be issues have to do with what you tell us. So if there's a length of time RFP, length of time issue, that's something you have to tell us. And again, we try to organically ask questions. So we'll ask you about your experiences, as opposed to saying, well, our RFP length of time is a problem. Wherever you find your issues or the benefits that you're getting, we're asking you to tell us about those experiences. Tell us what's good, tell us what doesn't work for you. And those are things that we're documenting, and using those experiences, we make those recommendations. I think that's all I see. I know we went over a little bit, but we did want to make sure everybody's questions and comments are taken into account. So do we have anyone else who has anything else they want to tell us tonight, or a question you want to ask? I'm not in a hurry. Angela McDowell?
Yes, ma'am. I asked if the disparity study would address the disparity between the grant awards issued by Metro to nonprofits, specifically BIPOC-led nonprofits like the North Nashville Arts Coalition.
Yeah, so our study does not include not-for-profits. It is an analysis of procurement with regard to vendors. And it would not include not-for-profits. Not-for-profits are excluded from the study.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, if that's all the questions we have, again, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Stay with us, communicate with us. Trinity and I are both here, as well as the rest of our team, and we'll get to know you a little bit more over the coming year. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a good and safe evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I hope everyone have a fantastic evening.